Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez. I'm your host, Emmy Hernandez.
No matter your age, it's never too late or too early to start thinking about making your money work for you. But where to start? That's why I'm here. I'm excited to lay out some key steps to help you save, grow, and invest your money in the smartest way possible. When your loved one passed away and they leave some retirement asset to you, such as an individual retirement account, inheriting it, you may think that it's simple, but it's really not. There's some rules, some steps that you need to follow in order to avoid any costly mistake. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about some of those mistakes that can be avoided. But first, let's talk about what is an IRA first. What is an IRA? It's an individual retirement account. That could be a regular saving account or investment account that someone had accumulated the asset over time when they're still alive and they're still working. Contribution going into those retirement account are growing tax defer. So it have tax advantage for all these years. However, when the money come out from those accounts, as a distribution, you're going to have to start paying taxes on it. So if the individual owner of the account still alive, when they start taking the money out, they report tax on their own tax return on a 1040 form. But if that person, the owner, passed away and passed on that account to their beneficiaries, it's the beneficiary job or responsibility to withdraw the distribution and pay income taxes on that. And that's why these accounts have some tax liability attached to it. If you inherited it from your loved one, could be your parent, your grandparent, or even your spouses, you need to make sure that you understand some of the rules that come with that. Otherwise, you can get caught in a tangled web with the IRS that will have some tax and penalty to you. Now, I'm going to talk about many mistakes that commonly happen. Okay, so first thing first, what the number one mistake is that if you are spouse of a person that you inherited the IRA from, overlooking the spousal options is a deadly mistake. It's a very, very fatal one. If you're a spouse and you inherited an individual retirement account, you do have options. Option one, you can take it as your own IRA. You can flip it into your own accounts. Option number two, you can take it as an inherited IRA. What are the differences? The difference is if you take that account as your own, you basically change it to your own IRA, your individual accounts. It's going to base on the distribution now going to base on your own life expectancy. Now, the caution with that is that if you do that and you are younger than 59 and a half years old, you cannot take withdrawal prior to that without the 10% early withdrawal penalty. Okay. However, if you choose option number two, taking as inherited IRA, then you are allowed to take money out from that account without any penalty, even if you are younger than 59 and a half. So those are the two options. So now you have to consider what are your situation, whether you need money from that funds or not. If you are someone who still have a pension or some other source of income, and you do not need the money from the IRA just yet, perhaps it's maybe better for you to roll it over and take as your own account, because in that case, you can still defer the tax from that account and let it grow tax defer until you turn to 70 and a half. That will be the deadline that you have to start taking the money out. Okay. If not, then you can leave the money grow tax defer for a long, long time. If you are in a situation where you need some extra or incomes to supplement to your current income sources, and you need to withdraw the money from that particular IRA account that your spouse leave it for you, then you probably want to take it as an inherited IRA, because an inherited IRA, you are allowed to take the money out at any time. Even if you are younger than 59 and a half years old, you're not going to have penalty with it. Okay, so first thing first, take a look at whether you have the spousal options and which one is better for you. Better yet, sit down with a financial advisor to determine what are the options that are right for you. That's a mistake number one that most of the people do. Now, the second mistake that happened commonly, it also not stretching out the IRA. What is a stretch IRA? Stretch IRA is where you really want to stretch along the tax deferred benefit of that IRA account as long as you can. Now, when we're talking about inherited IRA, the beneficiary must start taking the distribution from the account that they inherited from by December 31st of the year after the decedent passed away, the owner passed away. So that's when you have to start taking the distribution. And the distribution can be any amount, but the minimum amount that you must take, usually based on the life expectancy of the beneficiary if you set it up correctly. So for example, if you are 60 years old and you have to take it out, it's going to base on your life expectancy at 60 years old. So normally, when you calculate that number based on the IRS table of life expectancy table, it's going to come down to approximately 3 or 4% of your balance on the IRA, okay? So it's not going to go up to 5% rate of withdrawal until you turn to like 67 years old or something in that range. So with that in mind, you can see that if that particular investment account can earn at least about 5% interest rate or growth rate every year, and you have to take out 4 or 3%, not even that 5%, you can see that that money in the account will last so much longer because you have some growth in it. If you invest a little bit more aggressively and you can earn 7-8%, good for you. Then that means that inherited IRA is still going to keep growing, and you have that money for even longer than your lifetime in some situation. So mistake that people forget about, this stretching option also become fatal to that IRA account. You know why? Because if you're taking as a lump sum distribution, do not stretch out, what could happen is that all the money that you take in that 1 year, you have to report taxes on your income tax return on that particular year too. So if you inherited a big account, let's say a couple $100,000 of IRA, and you do not stretch it, that $100,000 could go into your income tax return on that 1 year. That will raise your tax bracket up, so you're going to end up paying a lot of taxes, and that drain your account down pretty quickly. Okay, so remember, so the first two mistakes that we're talking about, number one, looking at the spousal options. Number two, see if you can stretch it out for the longer period of time. There's many more, and we're going to come back and talk about a little bit more after this quick break.
Retirement's getting closer and closer, but admit it, you're still putting off the planning, right? Financial can help you plan ahead to sustain your golden years. Our wealth management and financial planning services are growing in the San Gabriel Valley. And because everyone's situation is different, we'll come up with an investment, estate, or tax plan that works for you. Stop procrastinating. Call us today or visit our website, ehfinancial.com. Don't worry, we'll be there for you every step of the way.
I think that any investment in Crown City News' program is a benefit to the community and to journalists starting out.
And many more. Those folks and others are now working in their dream TV careers, and you can too. We train kids, teens, and adults professional storytelling on TV and on social media. Call 626-344-8314 to join the International Media Training Center today.
Welcome back to Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez. Last segment, we were talking about if you inherited an IRA from your loved one, there's some rule and step that you want to follow because some mistake can be costly. Okay, I mentioned that as a spouse, you have different options. You want to make sure that you look into spousal option really well before you make a decision. And I also mentioned that for an individual beneficiary, you can choose to either take it as a lump sum, but you have to pay tax right away, or stretch it out over your lifetime, which give you much more tax benefit on that one. That was the last segment. Now, with that in mind, I always tell my client though that when you inherited an IRA, or even for my client that plan to to pass on the IRA to their next generation, please tell your beneficiary, okay, that when you inherit an IRA, number one, though, do nothing. Don't do anything yet until you sit down with a financial advisor or whoever that set up the account IRA for the owner. Because if you make a mistake, sometime it cannot be fixed. It's ruined the entire planning that they have. So first thing first, do nothing, touch nothing until you talk to the financial advisor and explore all the options first. Make sure that you do the right thing, the thing that's most appropriate for your own situation. Okay? So that with that in mind, the next item that we want to talk about is that if once you inherit an IRA, you also have to be aware that if you have more than one beneficiary in that particular IRA account, you each can split the IRA to become your own an IRA. Each one of the beneficiary can split it. Okay, in that sense, each one of the beneficiary can use their own life expectancy to stretch out the distribution. Why is that important? Because sometimes you may have beneficiary who are so much different in age. For example, if one of your beneficiary is your oldest son, James, which is, he could be 55 years old, and the other beneficiary could be a grandson, Daniel, who's only 20 years old. If you don't split, if the beneficiary decide not to split the account, the distribution must be taken based on the life expectancy of the oldest beneficiary, which means in this case, it's going to base on James' life expectancy. So every year, the mandatory distribution that come out going to be a bigger amount, and it's going to finish this IRA in a shorter time frame. So Daniel, the younger one, will be at disadvantages because he loses the benefit of an opportunity to grow this account with the tax deferred benefit for many, many more years than James. Okay, so remember, if you set up properly, and this is why you want to sit down with a financial advisor before you're taking the distribution, because in that sense, the financial advisor can help you split up the account, and you must do it the correct way. When you split up the account, each account still have to have the decedent name on the IRA in the registration. It must read something like this. Bob Smith, decedent IRA for the benefit of James inherited IRA, something in that nature, in order to qualify at the correctly split IRA. Okay, so important, split it into if you have more than one beneficiary. Now, we talk about the split already. Another thing that you want to be careful about is that the mistake is that sometimes people treat that inherited IRA as their own. That's what the title incorrectly. So sometimes you just roll over the account, you take the money, take the distribution from the IRA, take the check from one bank, and then go to another bank and say, hey, I want to open up the IRA with this money I just inherited. You cannot do that, okay? The only person that can do the rollover within the 60-day period like that is the spouse only, okay? That's only spouse can do that. If you're not a spouse of the decedent, you cannot take the money and do the rollover and treat it as your own. You must do an inherited IRA and split the account or set up the registration or the title, just like I mentioned before. The decedent's name still have to stay on the account. Okay, so that's a costly mistake, because if you happen to withdraw the money from that particular IRA and go and open up as your own IRA, the IRS will take that as a complete distribution from that account, and you will lose the IRA status, which means you would have to report the entire amount that you take a distribution of as a taxable income in that year, and you can no longer go back to have a tax deferred account anymore. So that's very important. So remember, do not do that. With this, complication right here, that's why you want to make sure that before you do anything, you check the rule and talk to the financial advisor. I say that a lot because I've seen these mistakes so many times, okay? And now, another thing that you want to consider before you take the further step after you set up an IRA for inherited IRA for yourself, you have to keep in mind that when you inherited an IRA, you must continue taking the distribution, or what we call RMD. Required minimum distribution have to come out from the inherited IRA. Some people think, oh, well, I'm not 59 and a half yet when I inherited this account. Why do I have to take the distribution? It's important to know, if it's your own IRA, if you are the original owner, you cannot taking the money out from the IRA before 59 and a half. Otherwise, you're subject to 10% early withdrawal penalty. However, if it's an IRA that you inherited from somebody else, you must taking the minimum distribution starting by December 31st of the year after the owner of the account passed away. Okay, so that's the rule. If you do not take the RMD, you miss the RMD, you're going to be subject to a big penalty. Big penalty is 50% of the amount that you're supposed to take. And not only that, you may be disqualified for the IRA status. And that disqualification, it also depends on the custodian rule. It's not the IRS rules to say that you're going to lose the IRA status by not taking out the RMD from the inherited IRA. However, some custodian may have the rule that say that if you miss taking the RMD, you no longer have that IRA and you have to take it out. So you'd have to double check those rules with the custodian of the IRA as well. But a lot of time, if you miss the distribution, you miss the mandatory distribution, what would happen is that you may end up losing the opportunity to stretch out the IRA. So no more stretch, you would end up have to taking the distribution out within the next 5 years. That's the longest that you can stretch. So now you lose the long-term tax advantage benefit for those IRA. Okay, so as you can see, these tax rules are quite complicated. So make sure when you inherit an IRA, take a look at the rule first before you make a move. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other different rules that you have to be mindful about as well.
Every day, Child Protective Services and the Department of Children and Family Services take hundreds of children away from their families. This will cost you and your family hundreds of hours of frustration in dealing with a juvenile court system where there's very little success. Don't try to fight the system and the social worker by yourselves. Call me first. I'm trial lawyer attorney Vincent Davis, and I have about 30 years of experience in fighting in juvenile dependency court for families and their parents. And I've won hundreds of cases, reuniting parents with their children in sometimes days, not weeks, months, or in some cases years. When it's time to battle the social worker and the juvenile court system, give me a call. We can help you. Call 888-888-6582 or visit us on the web at helpfightcps.com. Let's get your children back now.
Back here again on Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez. And you stay with me, Emmy Hernandez. We're still talking about making mistake when inheriting an IRA that can cost you a lot of money and time and headache. Okay, in the prior segment, I talk about not splitting the account, not splitting the IRA that you inherited in order to take the stretch and the tax advantage of that. I want to caution though, not only because beneficiary do not choose to stretch stake of the IRA owner as well when you set up the IRA, because the only time that the beneficiary can stretch out the IRA is if you set up and you have what we call designated beneficiary. And who are the designated beneficiary? That has to be an individual with life expectancy. Okay, so when as the IRA owner, you want to make sure that you plan correctly. You want to name your beneficiary on your IRA as the person that have life expectancy. In that way, your beneficiary will be able to split up the account. If you happen to put an organization such as a trust or even charitable organization as beneficiary of your IRA and mixing with an individual, then your beneficiary may have a little bit more complication, a problem with that, because a trust doesn't really have a life expectancy. So it cannot qualify as designated beneficiary. When the time comes, if the case like this, your beneficiary will not be able to stretch. What end up is that they have to take a distribution because one beneficiary, which is a trust or charitable organization, have no life expectancy. So the custodian will end up have to pay out the distribution almost, in 1 year, or the longest they can take it over the 5-year period. They will lose that stretch. So as the IRA owner, this is a part that you must take care of to give your beneficiary the options to stretch it out later on. Okay? And now also when I was talking about not taking the mandatory distribution, I want to make clear because some of you may confuse because these are particularly the RMD from inherited IRA work the same whether it's a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Some of you may think that, well, if I inherited a Roth IRA, usually Roth IRA have no mandatory distribution for the owner. That's correct. However, for a beneficiary who inherited a Roth IRA, you do still have to take the mandatory distribution that calculate based on your own life expectancy as well. So do not miss that. Now, talking about the missing RMDs or minimum distribution, this happened a lot in my practice. I see so many incidents that happen because it could happen also when, like I said, it's the responsibility of the beneficiary to take the mandatory distribution, even in the year of death. Okay, so if in the year of death of the IRA owner, if the IRA owner haven't taken their own, let's say the owner is over 70 and a half at the time of death, let's say 72 years old, passed away, and that particular owner hasn't taken the RMD or their own mandatory distribution for that year just yet, the beneficiary is responsible to take that last minimum distribution. Okay, so you must know, do not miss that. I've seen that a lot, especially in the incident where the owner passed away close to the end of the year. You're kind of busy in everything and wrapping up a lot of stuff, and you forgot about that. Now, if you forget to take the RMD, as I mentioned before, the penalty is high because that's 50% of what you supposed to take. For example, if the RMD is $5,000, if you don't take it, your penalty is $2,500. Which means you have to take it and then you have to pay the taxes on top of that as well. So that could be costly to you. Now, the good news is if you miss, it can be fixed. How to fix it? You must take the distribution as soon as you find out that you missed it, and then you can file a Form 5329, an IRS form, to fix that and request a waiver for the penalty. Usually the IRS are pretty lenient on this one. They allow you, they would waive the penalty for you if you have a reasonable explanation for that, okay? So once you find out that if you missed the RMD, do that right away, take it out immediately, and then file the form with the IRS. That will start the clock as well for audit purposes. Now, those about the RMD. The next mistake that I see a lot is that some beneficiary, when you inherited an IRA already, it become your inherited account. You forget to name your own successor beneficiary. Make sure that you do that, because anything can happen. If you inherited an IRA and you did not name a successor beneficiaries, what happened if something happened to you? That IRA account would have to go to probate, because there's no longer a successor beneficiary for that. And as you know, probate can take time and it can take forever to get that. And then the IRA will lose the status of stretching out. The probate usually go to estate, your own estate, and you're going to have to pay significant taxes on that if the IRA is a large account. So make sure when you inherited the IRA, name the successor beneficiary right away. The next item that you want to look upon also, that remember that inherited IRA cannot be commingled with other money. It has to be its own account. So you cannot take that inherited IRA and commingle with your own traditional IRA if you have your own IRA. Okay, you cannot mixing the money. If you do the mixing of money, you're risking losing the status of the inherited IRA. When you have an inherited IRA, remember, you cannot do a 60-day rollover. Direct rollover, 60-day rollover is not an option for inherited IRA. If you feel like that you don't like the investment option of this particular account that you have and you want to move it somewhere else, you want to move it to a different bank, you want to move it to a different investment institution, you can do so. However, do not use a rollover, 60-day. You do not withdraw the money and go open up the account at somewhere else. You must use a trustee-to-trustee transfer, and it has to be a trustee-to-trustee transfer of a like inherited IRA. So you have inherited IRA over here at Bank of America and you want to move it to Charles Schwab, you must set the same registration and move that over to avoid the mistake on that. Because you know what? If you miss that, it's going to be a distribution and you have to pay tax on that, on the entire account. You're going to lose the stretch and the tax benefit of the IRA altogether. Okay, so with these in mind, as you can see, we talk about many mistakes that can be happening. It's common mistake that people overlook. However, the penalty is severe, and sometimes you lose the tax benefit forever. So I would caution you, if you inherited an IRA from your loved one, do nothing. Number one, step one, do nothing. Sit down with the financial advisor first, financial professional that can help walk you through the rule and the step that you need to complete in order to save all those tax benefits. That's it for today's episode of Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez. As a financial advisor, I'm here to help you. So if you have any questions or comments, send it to me by email to emmy@ehfinancial.com. Don't forget, if you miss any part of the show, you can watch us again on ehfinancial.com or crowncitynetwork.com. Remember, being smart with your money, it's easy and you can do it. Thanks for watching. See you next time, right back here on Smart Money with Emmy Hernandez.